All right, John, first you, then the brand. And most people have an accidental franchise story. How did you accidentally fall into franchising?
I came up through corporate environments for much of my career, and it's interesting. I got a phone call one day about an opportunity with Ace Hardware. I had started my career with the Home Depot, and always had a tremendous amount of respect for Ace Hardware. And everybody talks about their Ace Hardware because they do such a great job of connecting with customers. And I really know that's one of the powerful things about really ownership that you find in franchising. And so I don't know by accident, but when I first got the call, I said no because I wasn't sure I wanted to move to somewhere cold. It was up in Chicagoland, but I'm really glad I did. As I had a great experience there, and it of course helped lead me to ServiceMaster Brands.
The reason I asked the question, and this is the extension to it, is I think through the journey as a franchisee, and most of the time they're someone that's in corporate America and they have this turbulent moment where they say, I want to make a change. And whether that's I want more time with my family, or I want to be in control, or I want to be my own boss, whatever that is. And at that point, they start looking at what are opportunities. It could be, do I buy a business? And they're usually on this fence of, do I stay in a career, or I make this big leap? The reason I asked the question too is because from your lens, you're taking this job in franchising. Did you understand what franchising was at the time, and what was your perception of it, and then how did that evolve and change over time?
I always had a lot of respect for entrepreneurs. I can't say I know what it was like to walk in an entrepreneur's shoes, but family members, both my wife and my family have watched take that journey on, and to understand what it's like to need to make payroll, and there's not a check coming every 2 weeks, and you really had a lot of respect and admiration for people like that. And that's what I found as I got into franchising was you had people that really care. You watch businesses that thrive for generations. I've heard it said it's not about quarterly earnings; it's about quarter centuries. Sometimes when you're thinking about passing on those businesses, and so that's what's really appealing and attractive to me about franchising. And can't say I knew exactly that's what I'd find when I got there. I saw elements of that with people that I knew who were entrepreneurs, and it's part of what keeps me here today.
I think the beauty of the brand that you end up in with Ace, and the second you start talking about what your perception was going into it, I have the same thing. Like if I close my eyes, I can smell what my local Ace smelled like, and I can see the older guy in the overalls behind the counter that was willing to answer any of my questions. But it's more like, forget about the brand. It's more what we're talking about from an operator standpoint that I think was the magic, that you had someone that, yes, was a business owner in your community, but cared about solving your problems. And I think that's part of the magic of franchising. And Ace did a great job. McDonald's in the early stages of you knew that this person owned the McDonald's in the market. Is that part of the magic of what makes franchising so impactful when you localize it down to local community?
I think so. I think that is absolutely the magic. They're your customers. And I think in particular, service industries, whether it's a local convenience hardware store, or whether it's a disaster restoration company, whether it's a janitorial franchise, whatever it may be, they're your customers, and you treat them like family. And I think that's part of what makes it really authentic. And I've worked in a lot of great corporations that are corporately held, private and public. But there is something a little different about entrepreneurs and the ownership in multiple senses of the word when it comes to all things about their business. And it really is fun to give everything I have to try to support people that truly are laying it all out on the line for their business and all the people that count on them to be successful.
Not a scripted transition, but you just said you want to support the people that are going through this. You made the change into this career in the middle of COVID. And so from a time where human beings need to have belief that the company has their back and that everything's going to be okay, that was the time where the owner operator probably felt lonely, probably felt scared. If they were really admitting what's going to happen, there were so many uncertainties. You're making an adjustment. You're taking on this role. Not that you really want to think back to 2020, but when you jump into the ship and like your mission is to provide the support, what was it like navigating that?
My goodness, at Ace, we were an essential business as well, and I think about the distribution centers, and if those facilities stopped flowing product, the stores start to die. And so you have people who need to be courageous to show up at the store. You have people who needed to drive the trucks. You had people who needed to work in the warehouse, and it was really the same environment. You transition into a ServiceMaster environment where, candidly, someone's house is completely flooded or there's a catastrophic fire. I mean, someone's got to still come and deal with that. We're also doing COVID cleaning. I think about facilities, and you think about how important that was to keep other businesses up and running, to come in and treat the COVID-19 when it was identified, and make sure surfaces were safe. So certainly I think everyone wants to feel like their work matters. And I certainly wouldn't ever paint myself in the same courageous light as those who were always on the front lines doing that. But it did feel good to know that I was supporting those that were. And so whether it was in an ACE environment or a ServiceMaster environment, we knew just staying home wasn't an option. If we were going to keep doing what we knew was essential. And so that was the decide to make a career change was for multiple reasons. But I think being attracted to the types of people that get their hands dirty, aren't scared to be on the front lines in an environment that we hope is something we don't experience for a long time, really charges my batteries, and it was a lot of fun stepping into the ServiceMaster role.
And anytime you switch careers, it's going to be riding a roller coaster. You're obviously switching careers at that point. Did it feel like a roller coaster, but also did you have like this sense of purpose? Because anything that you did at that point was going to impact the business owner in a big way. Did you feel like it was go time like the second you walk in the door?
Yeah, it was. And look, I was also very grateful. I knew a lot of people that weren't an essential business and didn't get to do what they love doing, franchise or not. And so there was a part of me that felt just tremendous gratitude to, whether it was ACE or ServiceMaster, to have an opportunity to continue to do what I loved. Yeah, it did feel good to be there for people when they really needed you. Yeah, it was inspiring to watch, people come together and maybe step out of what their traditional role was, because they understood the real work was on the front lines, at that point in time. And so, it's a mix of emotions like we all remember from that time, but really, gratitude for having something to go do that I felt mattered. And there's just a lot of admiration and respect for the people that really went out and did the truly hard work. And, that comes to mind as, COVID cleaning in a place that everybody else is horrified to go. You go in there on purpose.
I think back to some of the early moments of COVID, and one that stands out. We lived in Chicago in a townhouse, and there was a balcony off the back of the townhouse. And every night at 9 p.m., people were ringing pots and pans to thank like the emergency workers that were out there. And it was like, all right, we're coming together as humans. If I look at the franchisor community to the franchisees, it was like accelerated support. It was like, we are here for you in any different way. And I looked at just the culture that was being built at that time. It was so impactful. How have you been able to hold on to like that moment to also build it into the way that you lead the company today?
No, that's a great question. I think your storytelling and making sure through symbols, pictures. I was at our commercial operations center in Kansas City earlier this week, and there's pictures on the wall. ServiceMaster helped rebuild the Pentagon in 9/11, and see ServiceMaster vans in front of the Pentagon. I mean, there's iconic jobs that we've been a part of, and the pandemic and everything we went through, that's really part of that. And so I think everything from pictures on the wall to telling stories, and to making sure you build upon those priceless moments are really critical and important. And it makes some of the other things that sometimes in a work setting can arise fun and endured together. And that was one of those times where people really were going outside. There's still people sometimes who approach the world differently, however many years it is today later. So yeah, I think those were moments that we've continued to build upon. And just like any franchisee relationship, you go through ups, you go through tougher periods, etc. But there are those grounding moments and those times that really codify the bond and relationship that remind us all that, hey, we're in this as partners for the long term, and we're not going to let even a global pandemic break what we've built.
I'm going to compare your story to sports because that's just what I like to do. And so you just mentioned a moment where ServiceMaster was there, Pentagon in 2001. That's 24 years ago. So I think about because I'm in Chicago, like we still talk about the 85 Bears and we still talk about the 2016 Cubs like it was like it was yesterday. I think part of what you just said is when a culture reinforces the emotion that it felt to be a part of something impactful, and it a lot like you weren't there in the company in 2001, but you just referenced it, and like I can feel goosebumps just thinking about that moment, and that's where like almost that's not something to celebrate the fact that moment happened. It was that you were there, that you had the back when the company, when the country, when someone needed you. And if the staff can see that, if you can still feel that, whether you're a part of it or not, 25 years later, it's like the Chicago Bears. Like we still think the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl, and we hold on to that from a culture standpoint in Bears culture, even though our team's been awful for 25 years. So but I think there's something magical in what you just said. That means the story has lived on, you know?
That's what we talk about. No, you're right. I got goosebumps when I shared that too. And, I had no idea I'd ever worked for ServiceMaster, but I still see that picture up in a lot of offices. I travel the country. And when I think about the things that we talk about when we're with franchisees, sometimes we talk a little current shop, but often we reminisce about big jobs. We call them, CAT events, but remember this hurricane where we did this. Remember how resourceful we were, and we found a way to get onto, in my short time here, Sanibel Island with Hurricane Ian. And just how resourceful that was. I was driving on the back of a pickup truck. The fire department had commandeered for us that we got started, and we're bouncing down the road with every power line knocked over. I think about some of the stories I've heard of finding a boat and taking the boat to get to job sites where we needed to get resources to hotels that were 3 feet underwater during Hurricane Harvey. I mean, you hear these stories. Some of them you were directly a part of. Some of them were from 10 years ago. Some of them were from 20 years ago. But you're right. It's those really impactful either events or moments that are what continue to bond us. And I think that shared the shared memory, maybe the shared short-term suffering sometimes, is what keeps us together through some of the day-to-day business, which can spark emotion, but at the end of the day, we're bonded by something bigger. And those are kind of running towards big events when everyone else is often going in the other direction.
Well, there's two comments that I want to say on what you just said. One is, as a business owner, like being a business owner is tough. It's going to be tough business, and there's plenty of reward and opportunity that comes alongside it, but it is tough. And so I like, even in my own business, in bad days, I still look for the pinch me moments to say that felt really good. And it like, I can see what our purpose or our mission was. And so the beauty is within your business, you have franchisees that even if business is tough or they're having a bad day or a bad moment, that most of the time they can go back and think about something that they felt really good, where they stepped up to a challenge and found a way to support a business or a community. And I think the pinch moments are absolutely tremendous. And then above that, like for an outsider, if you went and you're at a cocktail party and you're like, here's the brand that I work at, probably the first perception is like, oh, why would anyone want to do that? But you just talked about an intangible emotional experience that when the business owner can see where business and passion merge, like that's a currency that is, in my opinion, larger than cash. And so when you just talked about those moments, like you play to show up, and it's almost like sometimes a thankless job in first responders, they play for the moments where they get to show up, and they show up in a big way. And I think like that's the two things. I just heard pinch me moments, and I heard like the true sexiness of the business.
Yeah. I think that is where ServiceMaster shines. When you think about, there's the majority of the business is everyday loss. And candidly, outside of, maybe losing a loved one, I mean, losing your home, losing everything you had from your children's memories. I mean, if you've ever had a severe, water loss at your home, I mean, it's devastating. And so those are bad days too. But I think you're right. It's the pinch me moments. And I think about even just, recently going up and visiting job sites in Hurricane Helene, and you see cars overturned behind. They found 5 bodies in the wash right behind the job that we're working on, and we're fixing a school. It's you just see people at their lowest moments. And now the folks that we have there have mobilized from all over the country, loaded up their trucks, their equipment. We're at another job site. One guy's truck smashed up because it got knocked over. I mean, they're just finding a way to be there and show up. And you're right. That's better than money. Just feeling like what you do and the business you built as a franchisee, it is something that really, really matters and will last and endure forever, because that person will remember how you came to help them. But it's also part of why joining a franchise system is impactful as well, because we can be a force multiplier when we all lean in and work together. And so seeing those big events, you're right, are the pinch me moments. But there's other ones too from an everyday basis that get you goosebumps or get you choked up as well when you touch somebody on a random Tuesday where that was one of the worst days of their life.
Yeah, and you showed up and you were there for them. When you took this, made the career pivot into ServiceMaster, how did you start to integrate your own vision with an established business? How did you take some of the things that you wanted to accomplish as a leader and put it into play?
Yeah, one of the first things we did is I think you just got to express that you understand and you care. I think so first and foremost was trying to just firm up relationships, but shortly thereafter we came up with something we call it Partners in Performance. And I think in a franchise system, you can't be all things to all people. And there's probably multiple ways to run a successful restoration business. But since we can't be all things to all people, let's pick the 12 or 14 or whatever we think it is that we're going to point all of our resources towards. And if you choose to adapt and modify and try to lean into what we tell you we're going to go do, we think we could probably go far. And so you're really getting aligned on a platform of KPIs and measurables that we're going to lean on collectively has worked really well for us over the last several years. I think about where we'd be if we hadn't established that program. That's how we go to market. That's how when we're looking at a new potential customer, we tell them we're going to operate. It's what we tell prospective franchisees as they evaluate our system and evaluate the opportunity. And so I think getting that common platform pulls things together. And I think if we pull that thread all the way through, here we were a couple of weeks ago, we just celebrated our third annual Hire Heroes USA golf tournament in San Antonio. Happy to say we've now raised over $500,000 for honorably discharged veterans and their spouses. And one of the other things that I really believe is people can kind of put everything aside and whatever rivalries aside for a little bit and determine that we can come together for something bigger than ourselves. And helping honorably discharged veterans and their spouses is one that I knew would really resonate with ServiceMaster, because we've got some great service arts here too. So common platform to today, figuring out a philanthropy that we all want to lean into. It's been quite a run, but when we do things, we try to do them collectively and together. And if you don't do that, then you're just a loosely banded group of folks that share the same logo.
I think some franchise buyers, when they're first buying a franchise, if they heard the term KPI, they're like, well, that's corporate. But the reality is it isn't. It's actually structure. And that structure or that scaffolding around a franchisee starts creating a model that they can follow and measure against on how are you performing. I think, and it's probably backwards when in an FDD and you're looking at an item 19, there's all these fancy numbers, but those aren't KPIs, and that's not a pathway to performance. It's just numbers. And so what you're talking about is let's give purpose to the business, which we have. Let's align KPIs so that we have that. And then let's add in the community element. Let's continue on the top level communication so that we can actually have internal community and external community. I think that sets up a tremendous business opportunity that if someone is watching this or thinking about going to business, that's what I would advise they're looking at, but they might not know how to look at those things as valuable. And I think you just put it very beautifully.
You're an entrepreneur. You got a servant heart. You want to do something that matters. You want to run a business that you believe has the potential to be successful. If we can show you an operating method and some structure, Now, if you want to go be independent, then you can go be independent. There's others that have done that too. But when you got an operating method that you can prove and validate works, and then you find ways to still connect to the community and be part of something bigger than yourself, you can go mobilize to an event, or you can mobilize with us. You'll do better if you do it with your fellow franchisees, with some structure. And so, that's one of the great things about the opportunity to pursue franchising is you get to make the choice. You're still the entrepreneur, and it's really, really rewarding for us when we see people kind of give up a little bit of maybe what they thought was the correct or approach, and not that the other's wrong either, but to lean in and find a lot of success, and then a couple of years later come back, shake your hand, and say, "Hey, thanks for challenging me in a different way. My goodness, look at what my business has grown to." So that's what keeps me going.
It's fascinating when I hear a franchisee talk about a royalty, for instance. I go, okay, look at the team that's behind that royalty. Look at a website, look at branding, look at structure, look at supply chain, look at community, look at people that are going to have your back. There's no way you could put that on a P&L as an independent, as a line item, and say for somewhere between 5 and 10%, I get all this. It's impossible. And that's something that, I think franchisors could probably do a better job of communicating all of this infrastructure that comes alongside for a royalty. Sometimes the franchise buyer sees that as, well, that's just money coming out of my pocket. Well, what do I actually get for it? It's like it would cost you 100% of every penny you made to have this infrastructure,
No, well said. I think any franchisor worth its salt needs to always challenge itself, though, and make sure, hey, what we're providing, it better be worth it. And you got to work on your communication. I think just yesterday we did another webinar, which, to our, the whole network. You obviously can't unpack all of it at once, but I'm sitting in a commercial operations facility that literally has enough equipment and enough capabilities and the human capital and expertise to perform literally jobs from nuclear submarines to the Pentagon to, there's not a job we can't do. And so the cool thing is, and what I told the franchisees that were there was, I said, being a part of ServiceMaster, you never have to say no, because there's one phone call to the people here. And if we don't know how to do it, we've got subs and other partners that we've worked with before that can help us accomplish it as well. And when you're part of a franchise system where you can literally do anything because you got that kind of partnership and support, hopefully that's worth whatever royalty you're paying.
That's huge. Let's close on this. Your vision as a go forward. If you're looking forward, say the next 12 or 24 months, what's winning for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think I look at these as these are businesses that should be and could be generational if you chose to. Now, it doesn't mean you want to give you have to give it to if your son or daughter's interested, but I want you to create the type of wealth that allows you as a franchisee to accomplish and go do whatever you want. And maybe you want to give it all back to the charity of your choice. Maybe you want to continue to build an empire. Maybe you want to continue to do whatever you can do. But if we can do that profitably, where you win as a franchisee, the franchisor can be successful, so it can do that for other people as well. And the investors who've invested in us, and those investments are often for teachers' pension funds and firefighters and police officers, when all three parties can win and continue to have sustainable growth, then gives you the options to go do whatever else you want to go do. And I think that's one of the great things about franchising. I think it's one of the great things about just this, this capitalist environment that we're in, where if you really want to go do that with the right sort of partnership and the right sort of mentality, we can go and accomplish that. So 12 years from now, I'd love to see this business quadrupled in size with more opportunities for more entrepreneurs. I want to be a part of it because the work we do is also important, and it'll allow us to respond more quickly, promptly, and safely to whatever natural disasters or everyday sorts of occurrences that will continue to occur, because inevitably they always do. So I'm having a lot of fun, and we'd love to see that happen in the next 10, 15 years.
It's going to sound like I'm blowing smoke, which there's literal smoke blowing on your picture right now. But I've said this in franchising for a very long time, that you bet on the jockey, not on the horse. Like if you took every business in a category and put it line by line, there's going to be points of differentiation, but that's a service offering. The intangible comes around people that are actually leading the process to the future. And just listening to you speak, and even you taking elements of your previous career and what you loved about an Ace Hardware, on how we localize things, and then how we treat franchisees and how we show up. I'm grateful that you were able to share this with me and whoever was watching, because if they're listening to the words that you're saying, it is all built around how do we drive more success for our franchisees. And I think far too often in franchising, the franchise vision is let's go sell franchises. And all I heard you talk about is let's go develop successful franchisees. And that's kudos to you and your approach that you take as a leader too.
No, I really appreciate that, Nick.
Yeah, of course. Well, John, thanks for doing this. This was awesome. For John, I'm Nick. This was another Franchisor Hot Seat.